right before the video starts and we get into the thick of it, please, I beg you, if you find this video interesting or useful in any way, press the thumbs up button and comment below. The YouTube algorithm keeps making my videos get recommended to people who wouldn't watch it to begin with. Dance moms? Really? My videos are really catered to dance mom viewers. Good grief. But yes, like the video, it would help out so much. And please, enjoy. D&D is full of amazing villains, but there's one that by all accounts is the most interesting one of them all, and without a doubt, the most infamous. In this video, we'll be going and taking out the red carpet for D&D's first vampire, Strahd von Zarovich. He's regarded as one of the best villains in all of D&D, and certainly deserves this title, but unfortunately, his lore is extremely complicated. There are ideas online about who Strahd is as a person, and details about his backstory which are completely wrong. Not everyone is expected to listen to 40 hours worth of different audiobooks just to know the history about one single character. But for me, since I've already done that, I can condense all of the information into a concise video. Let's begin. Strahd would be born as the firstborn child to the von Zarovich noble family. Despite what is believed by many, he was in fact not born in Barovia, or at least somewhere called that at the time. In fact, he was from an unknown kingdom, led by his father, King Barov. It is reasonable enough to assume that the kingdom he was from was, most likely, called the Kingdom of Zaro, or Zarovich. This is due to how in German, von in his name means from or of. Therefore, it is possible that von Zarovich can either simply mean from the noble family Zarovich, or from the Kingdom of Zarovich. While an infant, Strahd would be tended to by his wet nurse, a woman by the name of Baba Lysaga, of course a reference to Baba Yaga from Russian folklore. The woman fell in love with the infant Strahd, seeing him as her son. She would cast protective spells onto him and grant him gifts that would eventually bloom into a talent for magic later on in his life. Strahd's mother, Queen Ravenovia, would take notice of this and banish the woman, yet their spells would not diminish, and nor did Lysaga's love for what she saw as her true son. The Mad Witch would sacrifice animals on the daily to a dark goddess called the Night Mother, praying that the queen would eventually meet a horrible demise. During Strahd's childhood, as he grew up, he never really interacted with Lysaga, or even knew she existed, yet the woman would always watch her son from a distance. The culture of the von Zarovich family surmised that Strahd, as the firstborn son, would be instructed in the most important faculties their nobles should be skilled in. These included taxes, court etiquette, and most importantly, warfare. At the age of 7, Strahd would officially join the army of his king and father, Barov. 2 years later, at the age of 9, he would join his father in his first war. This was a war of conquest against a royal line of Dusk Elves, neighboring the von Zaroviches, who refused to pay fealty to King Barov to avoid conquest. Following his father into battle, he would learn the trade of war firsthand by watching his father's armies brutalize the forces of Dusk Elves. This war would be successful and would result in the death of the royal line of Dusk Elves in what's suggested to be a mass murder of the family. Yet, this isn't the last of King Barov's wars, who would proceed to have several nameless wars against nameless neighboring families who would refuse to pay tribute to the von Zaroviches. In the midst of these wars, Strahd had a brother born by the name of Sturm von Zarovich. Unfortunately, not very much is known actually about Sturm. All that we know is that he managed the finances and estates of the family, yet his absence eventually possibly in future events, as did the theories that he either fled the country and his family at a certain time, or he died by assassins from the many enemies of the von Zaroviches. Later in Strahd's life, around his 20s, he would find himself wounded in battle, but given safe haven by a strange people called the Vestani, who drift between the planes of the Forgotten Realms. Vestani helped him home, where he could rest and recover, forever creating a solid bond between Strahd and the Vestani. A few years would pass by, and Strahd's youngest brother, Sergei, would be born to the family. Strahd got to see the difference in how he and his brother were treated when they were younger. His parents coddled Sergei and granted the boy freedoms and opportunities to get the most out of his life. Strahd, on the other hand, was given a stern childhood of duty and expectations. Soon, King Barov would die from unknown causes, resulting in Strahd becoming the head of the family line. This was an event that Strahd had dreamed about and envisioned fairly fondly. He did not hate his father or wish him death, but he believed that he should someday finally become the head of the family, and that he might be granted some reprieve from his duties. Yet, there were no celebrations to be had. With his father's death came enemies out of the woodwork, old rivals of his father, who hoped to take revenge and advantage of the moment. This would force Strahd to leave and jump from war to war for a couple decades, before finally returning to his homeland. Now, his return wasn't much of a relief either for him, yet he did enjoy his brother's company. Untouched by the horrors of war or the weight of duty, Sergei was a young man who searched for the youth and freedom that Strahd had always desired. Meanwhile, all others at court remained distant from him. His reputation for being a hardened commander was known far and wide, and such proved an inconvenience towards the concept of building any sort of social life for the aging man. Yet, the introduction of a young woman by the name of Tatiana caught his eyes. She, just like Sergei, embodied the sense of freedom and youth that he lacked. His mind would drift to dark places, ideas about trying to romance her, thinking that she might fill his own life with the joys that he wished for. Yet, this was not merely a love or romance. It was an obsession with her, one that degraded into something even worse when he heard that Tatiana and Sergei were not only hopelessly in love, but were planning to be wed. Months would go by with Strahd trying to find a way to make himself appear younger so that he might actually have a chance and stealing away his younger brother's bride. Yet despite all of his research, none of it would bear fruit. And day by day, whenever he would speak to Tatiana, she would simply refer to him as Old One, a polite way to speak to one's elders, but a constant reminder of his own age, and the impossibility of really developing any romance with the girl. Before the wedding day, he finally sought to make a pact with dark gods to grant him the power he desired, the youth he desired, in the hopes that he might make Tatiana fall in love with him. Sergei would understand, after all, he was simply a young boy. He didn't know what love really was. During this pact, his best friend, or the closest thing to it, Alec Gwillem, witnessed him speaking to the dark gods. Before Alec could even utter a single word, Strahd would pounce on him, and with the clash of blades, he would finally be able to land a killing blow on Alec. Yet, in an ironic twist, Alec admits to him before he passes away that even though he knew that Strahd committed his own soul to the dark forces at work in Barovia, that Alec would have still stood by him. And with one sentence that haunts Strahd for the following day, Alec whispers that there is still a threat within the camp. Something that bewilders Strahd, yet his immediate suspicion is that it was simply a reference to the betrayal he had just committed against his own second-in-command. After the pact, after he drained the blood of Alec, he would look and feel the same, until the next day, right before the wedding. he would present his brother a Balvertzi knife, a knife from an assassin organization of the very same name in the land, something he presented as a gift to Sergei, before plunging the knife into his very brother's heart and ending his life. Being caught nearly red-handed in the act by a servant of the family, he screamed to them to get the guards. His brother had been murdered by the Balvertzi. Hours pass, as everyone would mourn the loss of their beloved lord, yet none would do so more than Tatiana. Seeing this as his chance, Strahd would sweep in and try to seduce her. His seduction would be interrupted by the betrayal of many lesser lords who would see this as the prime opportunity to overthrow the von Zaroviches. One of these lords, ironically enough, being an undercover Balvertzi agent that Alec had tried to warn Strahd about. In the middle of the chaos, Tatiana would hurl herself off the castle tower to get away from it all, plummeting to her death. Yet, her body would never be found. This would cause Strahd to go on a rampage, killing knights, assassins, servants, and even nobles, all the while feeling his vampiric power emerge. Hundreds of years later would pass since that day, with Strahd being the sole ruler of his land of Barovia, a realm now covered in mist that forbids any exit, even his. Strahd is a villain who falls into the lawful evil sympathetic villain trope. But the ironic issue is that many DMs are unfortunately charmed by this vampire lord. Too many DMs play up the sympathy believed to be deserved for Strahd. While many players should recognize the complexity of his backstory after they learn more about him, a DM should never make Strahd some anti-hero. Over the centuries of his rule, he's abused, killed, tortured, dehumanized, and even genocided countless people. The concept that he can be redeemed is a ridiculous idea, yet because the adventure suggests the DMs to play up his politeness and his manners to try and befriend the players, DMs can sometimes get blinded as to who and what Strahd really is. The fact that Strahd functions as the closest thing to a DMPC in any module really doesn't help this. Now, it's important to state that a DM really can't actually be wrong in their game in most cases, as it's their own world and their own Strahd. So anyone playing him in their own unique way is generally fine. But the concept that Strahd is redeemable or even misunderstood is flawed and diverts from a very specific message that the adventure has made very clear since its release in the 1980s. Strahd is both a man and a monster. His main desire is to charm the newest incarnations of Tatiana, and it is a desire that will never be quelled. He's the personification of obsession, and the dark powers of Barovia will see to it that he never gets what he actually desires. That is the Curse of Strahd.